What do you got for us?
So for operations, just wanted to update everybody, what we kind of touched on before Kara arrived, was we had 3 employees, we had 1 person, just to kind of end of the year overview. 1 person resigned and went to another company. We since hired to fill that position. So we have 3 full-time people. We've had seasonal this year, which have worked out really good. We've spent a lot of time in leveling headstones. That has been a kind of a pet peeve of mine, is try to get some of these headstones that have fallen or leaning or not on a good base to get them back looking good like they should be. So we put a lot of time and effort in that, and man hours, and in between mowing and trimming of trees and bushes and other things and burials. So we've done that recently with the court being moved from the new Justice Center out to the Service Center. Elizabeth and I are now based out of the cemetery, so that's where our offices are. So we're there every day, in and out, obviously, because we also oversee other divisions. So, but that's our mainstay now. It's not the Service Center. So, just wanted to update everybody in that.
Is that where you sell spots or lots?
Yes, right in the front office we do, yep.
What kind of foot traffic do you get? Or is it mostly just phone calls?
I'll let you touch on it.
There's some days where we don't get much, but then others we get a lot. I would say in the warmer months, we get a lot, especially on Fridays, probably people coming to visit ancestors. But on average, I would say like 1 or 2 people come in each day. A lot of times it's for genealogy searches or locating a loved one, but then other times it's just general questions or wanting to look at
Well, I'm
options.
happy to hear that you're using the building, as I said earlier on, and happy to hear that you're there if people do stop by and want some information about how can we find my grandfather's grave, or
Right,
do you have any spaces available, or I
yes,
think it's good.
yeah.
It's good to be there.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And we've had a successful cleanup. We have the spring and fall cleanup. That went very well. It was a chore we were trying to go, I think it got relaxed over the years, but we're trying to get back to the rules and regulations. So, I want to knock on wood, we had very few people come in and express, their feelings about the pickup and when to pick up and what got picked up, but I think we worked through everything pretty well and explained ourselves and the situation and why we do it. Because it seems like a lot of people are confused with, why do we clean it up and then next week you can put it right back? But we try to explain to them, a lot of people will leave things when they're in town visiting or, are sent, whether it's a flower shop that puts it out for them, and then it stays there for months on end, whether it dies or blows over or gets hit by, our mowers and weed whips. So we have to clean it up, but then, you're more than welcome to put it back out. So that's been good, explaining that, and everybody seems to be kind of understanding the whole process now. So I don't know if you guys have gotten any questions on it, but just wanted to put that out there in case you guys do. Thank you. So
Thank you.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Goes a while back. We were discussing unused grave spots.
Yeah.
Did they ever rectify or come up with an idea of what they could do?
We did. We voted on that, and the unused grave spaces, the years of, is it 70?
50. So commission approved that we can take back unused grave spaces after 50 years. We have to post a legal ad and send out certified mail. We've added language to the deeds, which we're also calling certificate of burial rights, that does indicate that it's up to family members to keep their information up to date with the cemetery office so that we can reach out to families. And we've just had one family that's been very pleased with that change because they were able to purchase a space right next to the woman's father and mother. So they'll be able to have a final resting space next to their family.
Good.
Yes.
And that was brought on by questions. I mean, we've had several questions, but in this case, they were kind of landlocked in
And in
with
that,
other grave
and in that
spaces.
case, they had actually, they had been unused for 75 years, so
Yeah.
exceeding the 50 years greatly.
People really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well, updating how that's handled is, I think is important to anybody that wants to buy.
sure.
And then they can make plans too. Well, we can bury our family here. We just have to make sure they maintain contact. So
Right,
that's great.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Any other questions?
I do have a question, a
Sure.
situation that came up today. I wanted to just ask. My understanding, the way the rules currently are, is if two people own spaces and there's a headstone out there and their names are on it, in this situation, the husband's buried, the wife is now being cremated or was cremated, and they wanted to place her with him and use the other space for a daughter. And my understanding, if I'm correct, is we can't do that because she has to be buried where her name is. There's a rule.
There is in the rules and regulations, the headstone name has to align with the location where the person is interned, so she can still be buried there, she just has to be buried on her space, not on her husband's space where she has to be in line
So
with her
even
name.
if both spaces are owned by the same family, we can't move and just add another name to the headstone.
We
That's
ju-
actually in the regulations?
Yeah, we just got challenged on that here within this last year, and we needed to be consistent with that, so that's probably why that's brought up, that we need to stay consistent, and yes.
If the preference
So
for
they can be buried, I mean, they can be buried on the husband, they would just have to have a headstone
A new
or
headstone?
yeah.
a new headstone there. And then we would have to have a headstone for the daughter in the
So,
space next to it.
Out of curiosity, can you put a headstone at Oakland without being buried? Like I have a lot of people who will buy a space, put a headstone, scatter cremated remains, but they want a space that they can come to because that's important to the family. So are you allowed to buy a headstone and place it if you're never going to use the space?
I would have to look back at, but I don't remember anything in there that says you couldn't.
Interesting.
But now we don't
It hasn't
allow ashes to be spread just anywhere at the cemetery.
Right,
That's-
right. They have to be.
We don't, at ours, we don't. I know some other ones do, but yeah.
It's an interesting rule, in my
Yeah,
opinion, that you
it is.
can't, that she has to be with the daughter instead of the husband when they're inches apart. I mean, it's just, I don't know if everyone agrees that that is the right rule.
I don't personally agree with that rule, that
I don't either, but it's.
once they purchase the plots, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, they, as long as they were not going against other rules, why would it matter if they were placed with her husband or her daughter was placed there?
Well, in this situation, the headstone was already made, and the headstone, they created the headstone to reflect
Right.
that she would be put in the space next to her husband, and
I
according to
think,
the.
as you said, they could change the headstone.
Yes.
If his father's here, nobody's here, we're gonna
Yes.
put the daughter instead of the.
But that's like a
This
$3,000
Well,
change.
it
I mean,
is.
right.
And, you know-
And with the rise in cremation, I just think that's an interesting rule that, because you can add a name to a headstone, that if you have these two spots and a headstone on them, does it matter
So how-
where on the line they
I
are?
would think it would.
It would
because,
matter?
You know, from time to time, you have to dig these bodies up.
But the records
Yeah.
would reflect it. It's just, when you're standing there looking, there might end up being 4 people in those 2 spots, as long as 2 are cremated. Does it really matter if the name is the man and the woman and another man and another woman, or if the 2?
So, I don't know specifically
Yeah.
when you're talking about, or how big that headstone is.
Honestly,
know
I
the
don't
headstone
either.
Can only be over,
It's a double. in
yeah, so I
between
don't
two
know
spaces.
that it could be moved to reflect only the one space, because they can only be, the headstones can only be so big, they can't overlap into the other space.
I just know at our cemetery, if they own the spaces, I don't really care what the headstone says. My records will tell me where the urn has been interred. The headstone's sort of irrelevant.
The rule was probably created before we started doing additional burial rites.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And, I mean, honestly, we could look into it. The headstone probably
Yeah.
could be moved into the single space.
Yeah.
And then but then they'd still be looking at purchasing a headstone
And in
for.
this particular case, expenses are an issue, so
Yeah.
they're not looking to move things, to
Right.
move it, to buy additional, they just wanted to add or new. So I mean, I get that, and that we see it a lot, though, as funeral directors, we're
Right.
trying to do something to.
You know, the
keep
rules are
costs
something
down.
that can be changed, and we
That
have
was-
changed.
Yeah, I feel like
And
it
you
might
gotta
come up
modify it
again.
with
I
the
was
time,
so
I mean-
surprised when I'm
Right.
like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, the records are only as good as the people that input them, so, you know, some of the older records aren't as descriptive as the new
Right.
ones, so.
Right.
Obviously, the newer records, electronics, I mean, you're gonna be more detailed exactly where everything is with GIS too, and which
Right.
we're starting to do, but in this case, it might have been made because maybe they didn't have good records.
They
I
didn't
don't- I
ha-
don't know.
It had to be, which makes sense for the past. I'm just throwing it out there for the future. I feel like it's going to probably come up because I do it frequently.
Sure.
So I feel like you guys will hear more about it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, if it's
Maybe
going to,
that can
which
be.
you think it probably is, we can start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if there's some way to.
Is that a rule that we possibly could change?
Yeah,
We can pose it to law, yeah.
yeah.
Just a thought.
Let's give it some thought then.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have we done to the chapel? You said there's some improvements.
So the chapel, we had it all tuck pointed, all the joints.
We get rid of the bees?
We have worked extremely hard to get rid of the bees, and I think we've done a really good job. They're down to, even through the summer, the warmer months, we were only getting maybe a handful at a time here and there. Now we had a couple spikes where it'd get up in the 40s, 40 count of bees that were dead inside. But I think we may be, I would say, I'm never gonna say we definitely got them all, but we're closer than we ever have of getting rid of them.
Did they
So-
try and capture the queen?
So we brought in a beekeeper, an expert on it, and his opinion of, and working with them is, that's not what you do. You try to let them get out, and we tried to let them get them out in the winter and then close up. So what we did is, we removed all the gutters, we put new gutters on, the old ones were bad, and then when we removed the old ones, there was holes underneath the flashing of the parapet, and then on the corners. So we sealed all that up, we put new flashing on it, we caulked it, we mortared it. We took all those holes out for them to get back in. Now, he said there could be some that linger over during the winter months, last winter, because it's heated
Yeah.
inside, so some could survive. And I'm hoping that's all that we were finding were the ones that survived. So, we did that. Like I said, we got new gutters, we did tuck point, we resealed the whole building, the exterior building, painted some of the window, woodwork around the windows. And now we're in the, we reached out to Milky's to redo the doors, because the doors are in really bad shape. But they're probably 6 months out, so that probably won't be something until next year. And then once we get that done, then we're gonna look on the inside of the walls, but I wanna make sure that the bees are taken care of before we try to redo the wall where the paint is starting to buckle and on the block, so I think it's a
Good to
false
hear.
block wall.
You
So-
get something like that and you find it's beautiful when you have it, but it's tough to keep up with the maintenance and.
It is, but I think it's a yearly thing that's gotta be on your mind. I mean, the guys were just out today, we had a lift, cause we did some mortar and tuck point at the bandstand also. That was in bad need of it. We got some new drains up top for the roof. There was some holes in the roof. We addressed that. While we had the lift, we cleaned all the gutters in the bandstand, the house, the shop area, everything. So cleaning the gutters is a key too, if we do that twice a year, to where you don't have that rain dripping
Sure.
and then freezing and cracking the mortar, so.
Great.
Yeah, I just wanted to update
Good
everybody on
news.
that, and I've been working on that. And then we also did, on the, kind of going back on the operation, we also did, not operations, but kind of the updates is, we did a lot of resurfacing out there, at the cemetery. So we had over, I think it was 2,500 linear feet of resurfacing in the blacktop in some bad areas that were
Yeah.
cracked and
It looks nice.
sloped down, and we
Yeah.
tried to make the curves a little bit better so cars can get around, because we got bigger cars now. So
It looks nice.
we've tried to do some update, and then we also installed a pole barn in the back for, some of our equipment. So that's been done. We've got, we just got the concrete floor put in, so they're gonna store the backhoe and the excavator back there so they can use the shop for some of the upkeep of our mowers and equipment.
Nice.
Talked to Scott earlier too. The cemetery's like a city. I mean, it's got water lines you gotta worry about, you gotta worry about paving, where you drive your vehicles, and as you said, maintaining the house and all the equipment, so, good, I'm happy to hear it. Any questions for Scott?
You guys are all welcome. I know it's not the best time of year to come out. We can take a drive. I can show you. We can walk through the chapel if anybody's interested and
Thank you.
see the new pole barn and that, or if we want to do it in the summertime, more than welcome to swing out and check it out.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Questions from anyone? Thank you for coming today, and we look to see you again on March 27th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
2024.
Do you have all the email addresses that you need, everybody?
I do.